host from How's It Hanging, How's It Happen? You guys know it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. The podcast, Rolling Stone magazine says, one that initiates profound discussions with rock and metal artists, allowing fans to discover the creative workflow of their favorite musicians and understand the factors that make the band succeed or fall from fame. We are all sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom computer. Get $100 off your entire build code SpeedPod at darkfusionsystems.com. Look at the podcast below. Let's go to our feature presentation. You may have heard of this band because they came out in 2024 in April, and they've got members from Ice Nine Kills, from Ashes to New, and even more connections there as well. We have Chris from the band Hillhaven on the podcast today. We talk about the formation of the band, how they all work together, what it was like creating these songs, dive a little deep into the most recent song, This Time Tomorrow, more of a positive light. But my favorite part of the conversation comes towards the end when we dive deep into the current economics of touring and everyone gets a further understanding of why ticket prices are going up and how expensive it has gotten for bands to tour over the past 5 years. So this is a great conversation with a great artist and you're going to enjoy it. So enough of me. Let's go! Yep. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. At the beginning of 2024, actually in the spring of 2024, we first heard about this band forming because it's like a big, awesome supergroup. If you love the modern sound of metalcore, whatever you want to call it. This band has members of Ice Nine Kills from Ashes to New and other members as well coming in there to create one hell of a sound in the metalcore world. They've got a couple of songs out now, I think 5, 6, 7. There's a lot of them coming out. Plus, they're making their live debut at none other than Christmas Burns Red. That's right. So if you're going to be in the Pennsylvania area and you're going to be able to go see Christmas Burns Red, make sure you see these guys play live because trust me, you're going to enjoy it immensely. But let's get to know the band. So please welcome Chris from Hillhaven to the podcast. So Chris, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
That was a hell of an intro. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, you are very welcome. And dude, I do all these intros just like on the spot. I'm like, I've got a whole list of like notes already. Like, I'm going to do my preview, make sure I get, all my stuff put together. But when it comes to putting together an intro, it's just like bing, bing, bing. I'm just going to go with whatever the heck I feel like right then and there and try and make it as big as possible.
Respect. I appreciate it.
So I hope I did well, but it sounds like I did. So I'm just going to go, yes. Okay. My achievement is done for the day. I'm good. See you guys.
Awesome.
Well, Chris, one thing I am curious about, especially because I have had two of the other members of this band on the podcast for in different capacities. I've had Matty Madero on right before From Ash to New released Blackout back in 2023 and Ricky Armelino from Ice Nine Kills. It wasn't even him on the podcast. It was someone that he was working with, but every time he walked in and out of the studio, he would video bomb us every time. It was like 11 times he did it, I counted. So,
yeah, that's a Ricky thing for sure.
Yep. So seeing all these members come in from different bands, from different projects to come in and create this, I got to know, how did this whole entire thing get started and how'd you guys put this all together to become a band and start putting out more new music? And it seems like a new song every single month at this point.
Yeah, I think it's been every like 4 to 6 weeks since April. So I had written one song, which was a song called Gaps that we wound up putting out back in June. And it was originally written to be used for another band that I was working with at the time. Couple interpersonal things came up, didn't wind up using the song, so I just had it. And I actually did some writing with Maddie and the From Ashes guys on the Blackout record, so we had worked together before. And so I sent him the song, just kind of like, basically like, I have this song, I think it's good, but I have nowhere to put it, basically. Like, so I don't know if this is like something I can sell to a band or a publishing company or a label or whatever, I don't really know. I've been a hired gun for a long time now, so I don't know a whole lot about like that end of the business. But when I sent it to him, his first question was like, are you doing something with this? Is this a project that you're starting? Because if you want a drummer, like, let me know. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, like that wasn't the answer that I was expecting, but like, now it's like, well, a whole other tangent has opened up of like what we could do with this. So, but I had the original band that I had written the song for, I had that singer on it. And I was like, well, I don't think he's going to be leaving his band. So I could either find another singer, but I don't really know how to do that. I could find a million people that play instruments, but when it comes to singers, I have no idea how to like separate, you could tell if somebody's good, but I have no way of like weeding out the bad picks or anything like that. So, um, I was like, all right, well, I'll give it a shot. And like, so I re-recorded the vocals myself, and then I just sent both files to a bunch of different people, just labeled it singer one and singer two. And I asked people to just tell me which one they thought was better. And most of the feedback that I got wound up coming back saying that they liked mine, which I was surprised about. So so I was like, okay, well, I mean, that makes it easier because now I know that I can. 'Cause most of the time, the writing that I had done prior has all been instrumental work, and I let other people handle the vocals. So I had never really considered myself very good at that end of things. But this was sort of like a proving moment of like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, I think I could do that. So and it would make it easier to not have to like coach somebody else on like, no, like make this sound, sing it like this, like I can just kind of do what's in my head. So we decided to go forward that way, and then it was just conversations after that about like who else we could get involved. He recommended Jimmy because Jimmy plays with him and From Ashes for their live stuff, and I had played. I think no, at the time I think I was still touring with Ice Nine Kills. So Ricky and I were working together. We've known each other for a long time anyway. So I asked him if he wanted to be a part of it, and I was actually surprised when he said yes, because he's just an incredibly busy person to begin with. And then Jamie, the bass player, was the last addition, and that just came because we had another bass player lined up from a relatively prominent band, and it just didn't wind up working out. But Jamie's been a friend of mine for a long time, and I just kind of always had the vibe like this kid deserves a shot at some point. So I was like, hey, like, do you own a bass? Like, do you want to be in a couple of music videos? Learn these three songs in the next few days and get yourself to Lancaster. Um, and luckily the chemistry with everybody worked out really well when we all got together. So yeah, I mean that's as short as I can possibly make the sort of origin story as far as how everybody got involved. But yeah.
That's like an Avengers team up type style where you had something, you just kind of went around seeing what was going on. And once Maddie kind of had the idea to put in there, like, okay, we're going to go off this tangent, maybe create something for ourselves. It's like you started grabbing everybody like Iron Man, you got Thor, the Hulk, Captain America, then bringing in Jamie just kind of is like adding Spider-Man into the mix. So
Sure.
well, because you'd be surprised that a lot of times when I find out about new bands, it's like I want to hear the origin story. I always pitch it as give it to me like you're starting the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I didn't even bring it up to you, and you basically did it with this band in a kind of capacity that not only are people that are especially into metal today can really get into, but also it's like, oh my God, we're seeing these artists and we're seeing these musicians from these different bands come together and really put this together, because it seems like when you listen to these songs and you see how everything gets put together, the chemistry is absolutely there from a bunch of guys that I assume would definitely know each other, especially they all know you, but have probably known each other from many years from other bands, other projects, coming together to create something that started out with a song that you had for a potentially different band that you didn't know what to do with. And now, especially at the time of recording, there are 7 full songs already out there that people, or 8 maybe, I can't remember, there's 7 or 8, I got to count.
So
One,
the
two,
seventh one just came out. Yep.
yeah, because I was like, I know one just came out literally the day before we shot this. I'm like, I gotta count this again. Am I missing one? But it's still just absolutely insane to see how this has happened. And not only has this probably been put in the works for a little bit, but also just see us play out over the course of a year without you guys even playing a full show yet, just given how busy everybody else is with their other projects.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as like, you mentioned the Avengers thing is a good analogy, but it really just comes down to like when you're starting something new in your 30s and everybody's got careers
Mm-hmm.
and income and levels of comfort that they've become accustomed to and whatever, like it can be a scary thing to start something new because you're starting from scratch. Like if this band goes on tour, we're not going to have the comforts of buses and
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff. So if we're going to be doing that, we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And so like getting people that are already kind of involved in this space. It wasn't just like there's the obvious thing of like, oh well, if there's people that the audience can recognize, then it kind of gives it some credibility and whatever. But first and foremost, it was like like we didn't, none of us wanted to have to hold anybody's hand
Hmm.
through this and have to like it's hard enough to start something new without having to show people the ropes. So the fact that it was just a bunch of guys who have been doing this professionally for a while just made it very, very easy, especially in time crunch situations. When we got together to do the music videos, that was the first time that we had all been in a room together. And we've all done a million music videos. We've all been on tight schedules and stuff. So it was very easy to just knock everything out. The the preparation for Christmas Burns Red is going to be a time crunch. Jimmy and Maddie land from Australia 2 days before the show. So yeah, it's gonna be a thing. But like the thing is, I'm not worried about it because of the people that are in the band. Like everyone's dealt with a time crunch, everyone's dealt with a tight deadline, and most importantly, everyone's very good at learning songs and not willing to make a fool of themselves. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
having professionals involved, kind of takes a lot of the worry out of things on the front end. So, it's definitely been very, very helpful to have this group of people along and just be able to sort of trust one another. And, there hasn't really been any kind of like bickering or anything like that. You kind of avoid those sort of local band pitfalls that you might
Yeah.
encounter when you're starting a band when you're younger.
Yeah, because especially as a younger band, if you're trying to learn the ropes, you're going to go through a lot of mistakes that, of course, all of you guys have gone through because that's how you had to start. That's how you got to where you are today by going through these local scenes, by building yourself up in there. And whether it's individual or as a full on group or with groups of different people, you've gotten all that experience behind you and you've gotten these personal relationships behind some of you guys as well. So getting into that room together to shoot those music videos for the first time, you definitely had that professionalism there, but you also maybe had that embedded comfortability to a certain degree. So people weren't always messing around. People knew the time schedules and people knew where the chemistry was going to be and how certain people were going to play off of each other. So you could just make this work as best as possible. And then when you get in this time crunch for Christmas Burns Red, you're able to be trusting enough where Jimmy and Maddie are going to be absolutely on point throughout the whole entire set. And at the same time, you guys are going to be all set too. There's not going to be any lag in production, lag in the overall show, lag in the presentation of the band to so many new people because, again, a lot of people are going to know you guys, but this is the first time people are going to actually get a chance to hear these songs live. And whoever's going to Christmas Burns Red, I am very jealous of you. So I'm going to point to you and be like, I'm jealous. I'm honest with you.
Well, I appreciate that, man. But yeah, we're looking forward to it, and it, like I said, it'll be a bit stressful for a couple of days, but all we got to do is last for 25 minutes on stage. I think we can all handle that.
I'm pretty sure you guys can handle it too, especially knowing the fact that you guys have been gotten used to playing, hour-long sets, sometimes hour-and-a-half-long sets over the course of the past couple of years. So a 25-minute, especially with 7 songs that you guys already know, you guys have already played, practicing them shouldn't be the hardest thing in the world because, again, the professionalism behind it, you know what you're doing, you know where you got to be on stage. And at that point in time, it's kind of just the opening show for Hillhaven, but at the same time, a big giant celebration, being out there for the first time as a group, having a bunch of friends seeing you guys play live for the first time too. And it's Christmas. Who can be mad around Christmas?
Right. As long as we don't fuck it up, then people can be mad. But we'll be fine.
Let's just put it this way. I don't see that happening because, again, the professionalism, the chemistry is already built in there. This is going to be just fine. If anything's going to fuck up, it's going to be because I don't know what it's going to be. I'm just even going to put that out there. No. We're going to reel that back in. No bad juju.
All right.
Bring back the
I
bad
appreciate
juju.
it.
Well, not only because you brought up Gaps, working on that with other band and just trying to get stuff going with that, there are 6 other songs you guys have already put out. When it came to writing these 6 other songs as well, was this a full-on group effort between the 5 of you guys, or how are these songs put together? Again, just because all of these different members are coming from so many different places, so many different time schedules. So how is the creation process for these songs all working together?
Yeah, so it became pretty clear early on, for a number of reasons that like I was really gung ho on the idea, and so I was just like, if I think that if I want this to happen in any sort of timely fashion, that I'm gonna have to just plug away and just send things to people for feedback and whatever, and just
Mhm.
make sure everybody's cool with it. And that's effectively what it was. We would have loved to be able to, get everybody together, but it's so difficult to do, especially on short notice, and when it's something that, like, who knows if it's actually going to happen. It could fall apart at any moment. It might just wind up being one of those things where you have a conversation with your friends about, wouldn't it be cool if we did this, and then it just fizzles out. You know what I mean? So when there's that much uncertainty, you can't really expect five busy
Mhm.
people to devote a bunch of time to it. So I just decided to, I'm fortunate enough, I have a pretty cushy touring gig. So, my off days are my own, and I don't have to be at load in or anything like that. So, I would just lock myself in hotel rooms and tour bus lounges and whatever, and just kind of grind away at this stuff. And when I would finish a song or I'd have progress on one, I'd send it over and make sure everyone liked it. And if there were ideas of, production things, or sometimes Ricky would help me, kind of crack lyrical puzzles and things like that along the way. But yeah, for the most part, it was just kind of me chugging away for like probably about a year, just getting the body of work together. So got, like, I think it was 10 total songs, seven of which we've released. The other three we'll figure out what we're going to do with, if there's going to be a record, or if it's going to be saved for future release, or whatever it's going to be,
Mhm.
because there's already new material being worked on. But yeah, it was just like, it seemed like it was going to be a necessity for somebody to kind of take
Mhm.
the reins. And since I had sort of inadvertently been the one to sort of start
Mhm.
the direction with that first song, I just figured I would keep going, and luckily everybody seemed to be happy with what I was putting out.
Beyond that, though, the understanding of just how everybody else is going to work within the band, everyone else's schedules as well, and where your ability can work with this is, I love the fact that you're the one to be able to take the reins and really get going on this to create this whole entire thing if you want to keep it going. There are so many times in life, whether it is with your family, with your friends, in your career, work, even just in your own like social circle, where it's things want to get done. You have these ideas and people want to get them done, but unless someone actually takes initiative and maybe starts it or gets it going, it's not really going to go anywhere. And then it's just going to always be a what if, what if we would have done this? What if we would have taken this trip? What if we would have taken the initiative to try and get this whole entire thing going for whatever project we're working on at work? Then if someone takes that initial like ownership and goes and leads it, then you have much more of a chance to make that work. And then you get a sense of, okay, is this actually going to be feasible? Are other people going to be able to come along with this? Is this going to be something that we can actually put out as a great product and a great piece of music, especially in your case? And taking the
Right.
time to what you have the ability to take the days off, be in, hotel rooms and tour bus lounges, and even, maybe backstage just working on this stuff as much as you possibly want. It gives you the ability to not only shape this the way you want, but also still have the comfortability to go to these other guys and say, hey, I'm working on this. What do you think? Maybe you can help me with this. And of course, little bits of time. Now, it's not as pertinent to their busy schedules, but they're still a part of the whole entire thing as well. So even that professionalism right there that we talked about, it's showing because you're figuring out not only how to make this work, but how to make it work the best with everybody else's schedules to make sure that not only everyone is still invested in it, but, everyone is still able to do this with all the other obligations that we have in the world.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is that, I've worked with Ricky on projects before. I mentioned that I had done some writing with From Ashes too. So like, we had already had that kind of rapport there. So
Mhm.
um there wasn't a reason for anybody to, like, have any lack of trust. It was like, all right, well, if any one person in this group is doing any work on this, like, we can probably trust that it's going to come out
Mhm.
pretty decently. You know what I mean? So that was definitely helpful, to just be sort of given, like, you know, creative freedom, basically, because I think we all kind of agreed on the direction from the get-go, and it was fairly easy to sort of stay within those parameters.
That's really interesting because I also love the direction that you guys are going to, because especially it does show the heaviness, especially more of a modern metalcore style, but it also has so much more of expansive realm as well when you listen to these certain songs, especially with the one you guys just put out recently, This Time Tomorrow. Because listening to it, I was not expecting that to be the sound, but you listen to it and you dive deeper into it, and it still feels like it's connected to all the other songs you put out, but it's in a completely different capacity, and it makes you feel completely differently than these other ones have. So again, the connectivity is there, the understanding is there, and if other people are joining in from the band to work on it a little bit more, maybe a little bit, on the same level that you are, perfect. The professionalism is there, and the understanding is there from these guys to know you're going to trust them. If they're going to put something out there and try and work on this, it's going to be of the highest quality. It's not going to have, that new upcoming band or just trying this out for the first time, green type mistakes.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
So I do want to jump in, of course, at some of these songs. I do want to ask about the brand new one that you just released right before we record this time tomorrow. What was the idea behind this one? Because it does take a little bit of a left turn compared to some of the other songs you have out already.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, apart from Gaps, every other song that we've done this year has been like pretty negative subject matter wise.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the last one, Temple and Tomb, that's definitely like the heaviest one, the darkest one, whatever, very self-deprecating. But the writing process for this whole thing just effectively became me using a microphone as a therapist. So a lot of it was just like, just talking about personal issues, things that piss me off, people that piss me off, like just kind of venting a lot. And throughout that process it um kind of felt like I was like taking all of that past shit and just putting it in one place and then just kind of burning it to the ground. And um and so like seeing that that was the path that everything was taking, it became evident at one point that like there's not only probably going to be a song, but will probably have to be a song that has some sort of glimmer of hope, that stops focusing on stuff that has happened and starts looking forward instead. And just kind of like uh have like a light at the end of the tunnel kind of vibe. Um, because I mean, as cliche as it sounds, everybody likes a happy ending, right? So it's like it doesn't have to be like an A24 movie where it just gets worse and worse and then it's over. um you know uh so um just wanted to have the ability to make a song like that and to like have sort of a positive spin on things and kind of look at all that stuff from a healthier perspective and with a little bit more of like um an optimistic outlook. And I mean also like from the get-go, even though obviously there's a lot of metalcore and heavy kind of influences in our stuff, like um it's been very intentional to try to not like pigeonhole it into
Mm-hmm.
just that, because the accessibility and the radio friendliness and stuff has always been a really big focus point for this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's pretty obvious that the new song is the most radio friendly one that we've put out so far. I think it's probably the most accessible. But yeah, just wanted to be able to like, because a lot of people related to Temple and Tomb and were telling us, how they were sort of, you know, relating it to their own life and experiences and stuff. And I think this being sort of the antithesis of that song,
Mm-hmm.
was a good way to shift and sort of close out the year as far as releases are concerned, because a lot of those same people are now telling us that like they kind of needed
Yeah.
that song. They needed that step. You know what I mean? Because like when you're in a dark spot, it's not always obvious whether or not things are going to get better. And especially if it's like an internal conflict, sometimes there's a part of you that doesn't want to get better, and
Mm-hmm.
um you have to kind of allow yourself to like be okay again. And so that's kind of what the whole song is about, is just kind of like picking yourself back up and dusting off and like recognizing that there is a better way forward, basically.
I did actually, I loved it because I like to relate to it, all these songs in my own way, just to make sure it's like if I'm connecting to them and I'm really picking up on them, because I picked up a lot on the positivity of This Time Tomorrow, and it definitely is the most radio friendly of the tracks. For the others, of course, they're heavier side. This one isn't necessarily as heavy, but it does give that positive feel. Like where the other 6 songs, like you said, is you're putting all this stuff that, working as a mic, as a therapist, putting all this negativity out there, putting it into a house and burning it down. And it's like with This Time Tomorrow, it's like the fire is gone, the house has been burnt down, the ashes are on the ground, and you turn around and you see the sun rising. So it's like there's a new day coming. It's going to be positive. It seriously feels like a song that you're going to be like looking out at the sun rising. You're going to finally feel that warmth and that light, and it's going to just radiate positivity throughout you. And what you brought up too about people needing it. Yes, I love the fact that a lot of bands are writing heavier things, that are writing about deeper topics and more personal topics, because the more we put those out there and the more we actually speak about those, the more people feel like they're less alone and that they can actually get through these. If other people can get through these, they see it as an association thing, and it gives them a lot more hope and confidence. But at the same time, if we focus so heavily in on that, people are also going to be wondering, when is that positive ever going to come? Are we going to get that feel? It kind of goes back to Beartooth as well, where the first 4 albums are much deeper, darker, and have a heavier tone to them. And when they released was it Below back in 2023, it was like positive Beartooth all over the place, where it just felt like, the sunshine was radiating on you whenever you listen to a song. And that's what I thought about here. It reminded me of a time when I was definitely not doing so well, and an ex-girlfriend told me, you have to learn to forgive yourself first before you can actually move on. Like, you have to forgive yourself, because if you don't, it's not going to happen. And it took a while to kind of figure all that out. But once it kind of happened, that's when I finally got to see the light at the end of that tunnel and actually got to know that, maybe there is a way to get better after this. But having music like that to be able to connect to people, especially not only what people here in the U.S. have gone through over the past year, but everyone across the world has been going through over the past 4 years. Having that positivity come in there can remind us, that there actually is good in life, and it's not all doom and gloom at times. So it definitely is a needed song for a lot of people, especially as we go into winter when there's not as much sun out anymore.
Yeah, it seems like in the last couple of days the sun has decided to go away. I can feel the seasonal depression creeping in pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, like, it's difficult to, especially as someone who's relatively new at this, like when you're writing a song that's so personal to you, it's difficult at first in a weird way to see and hear what other people take away from it, because for you that might not be exactly what it's about. And so at first you're like you kind of get your like troll goggles on of like, actually, but it's you like that you start realizing that like you're now kind of part of that grander thing where like no, like people can interpret your music and attach it to their own lives and it can be beneficial for them, and like that's a really cool thing to be able to experience. It's still so foreign to me that like it can be difficult to like acknowledge that, like something that I wrote could potentially help somebody, because saying that out loud makes it sound like to me it makes it sound like I'm, you know, tooting my own horn, or, being like, oh, like I did this really important thing, and so it's, and I inherently have a hard time doing anything like that. So but like it is really, really cool, to see, comments from people saying like that the song's been really helpful, or that, that that it's helping them through recovery, or, they needed it for their mental health, or whatever it might be. To have real people expressing that like you had an actual impact on their life in some way is definitely not it, like it's a great feeling. It's just not one that I'm particularly used to. So like it's been a very humbling experience for sure.
But that's the beauty of music, though. I mean, and there's plenty of songs that you've probably listened to over the course of many years where the artist had him and written them about a specific thing, about a specific topic, and you may have had the same emotional connection that they did to that topic, but your specifics are in a completely different realm. So if you ever brought up to them, they may have put on those troll goggles and like, actually, what I wrote this about was this thing, and you're wrong. It's like, no. It's the beauty of music. That's where it comes in from, where we can connect with the emotional capacity that is being brought forward in there and the vulnerability that is being brought forward in these songs, whether they're much more deeper, darker, and maybe a little bit more on the angry side, like Temple and Tomb, or they bring forward more positive emotions like This Time Tomorrow does. It allows us as just to enjoy music even more and connect to it a lot more. And I get where you're coming from too. It's something that you create and you don't want to get on that like pretentious high horse and think that you created something that made this big bombastic change, because then it's like if the next thing doesn't make as big bombastic of impact on other people's lives, it's like, well, that was better than last one, I think. So what the hell's going on? Keeping that idea and keeping the humbleness behind it really will help you continue to go forward, not only as a songwriter, but then as you release more music and you see more people relate to it in different ways than what you had and maybe intended or what you wrote it about, you can really go boil down to the emotional core of that song, see where it comes from, and then be able to connect with people continuously on a deeper level that maybe helps them understand something or helps them out just because you are going through something and you're talking about it in your music and you're creating a song that encompasses that for us to listen to, get into, and help us to process maybe things are in our own lives that we can't really do without the sonic journey of emotion that these songs bring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing too. And because when I remember listening to this time around, first thing I thought was like, I'm getting the feeling like Beartooth again, but like positive Beartooth. And I looked outside and it was like gloomy. Previous day it had snowed here. I'm just like, this is actually making me feel a lot better. Like, I can't wait for this song to be played not only throughout the winter whenever I need it, but also in summer when I'm able to like sit on the pier and on a lake up in northern Wisconsin with a fishing pole in my hand. Go to listen to This Time Tomorrow. Just, really feel the positivity of it. And then jump right into like to some pop punk. And if I feel like I'm getting angry, but I want to be happy and angry, let's go Day to Remember and just have a blast. So it all funnels into every time you need a jolt of positivity and just really feel the niceness of it. This Time Tomorrow is a great song for you to go with.
Hell yeah. I appreciate that.
Now, I do want to ask about the Christmas Burns Red show, because I know you said that the guys from Ashton have only going to be like 2 days back in the country before that show hits. What can we expect from your first show live, especially it being a Christmas show and especially with a whole bunch of people not only waiting to see this band, but ready to go absolutely nuts?
I mean, well, so the thing is, like, just keep in mind, we're still the opener, right? So, like, there's not, like, I would love to say, like, we've got some crazy production plan. We don't. It's just going to be us. You know what I mean? Like, but I think that we kind of laid the groundwork for that with the Sycophants video, where it's just us on the ground. There's a couple of lights, and we're just kind of being idiots. So like, it's really just going to be about. I think it'll probably be cool for those of us that are in bands that have, like big thematic stuff or big production or lots of costumes or whatever, where like to just kind of like be up on stage in your street clothes, just playing as a band. Like that's something that I think a lot of us haven't really gotten to do in a while. Kind of get back to like the punk rock garage band days almost, luckily, hopefully it'll sound better than that. But, but yeah, I think it's just going to be like as simple as it may sound. Like I think it's just going to be focusing on like executing the tunes to the best of our ability and trying to have fun.
Honestly, I kind of love the idea behind that too. I know it's, not, especially as the opener, you're not going to get the most amount of production that's in there, but taking it and looking at it as, maybe you're used to doing a lot of things like From Ashes to New, their production just keeps getting bigger and bigger every time I see them. The thing about Ice Nine Kills, I still remember the first time I saw them, I saw all the costume changes, like 2019. And it's like, okay, I'm seeing them in smaller venues, just seeing how this whole entire thing is put out together. And the last time I saw Ice Nine Kills would have been August of 2024. They played at a minor league baseball stadium to a sold out crowd. Right. And the production around there, the amount of stuff that goes on there, it's like, you gotta be kidding me. This is insane. Then to be able to go back to kind of the root style of it and really not only get to be able to do it the way you guys always used to do it, kind of as a callback, but just as a bare bones way for people to just take the music in, get to know about it. And yes, you guys are the opener, but also this is a Christmas Burns Red show. So you know that's going to be packed right from the get-go because these fans want to go and see every single band that's on that bill, because whether you're going to night 1 or night 2, whether you're going to see the night that Hillhaven's on there or not, trust me, that bill is still pretty stacked. So you're going to see a lot of people.
Both nights have an insane lineup for sure.
Yeah, and I'm just like, why am I in Wisconsin? Why can't I just travel out to Pennsylvania during those times? But, money and, maybe especially because we're going to be in December at that point in time, if we get stuck with some snow and weather, a 13-hour drive might not be the best idea.
Right. Yep.
I mean, maybe I can convince one of my friends to be like, okay, I'm going to sleep in the back of the car. You drive this point in time. And then I'm going to wake up and we'll be like, yeah, we got a problem. We're in a ditch. I'll be like, so how are we getting to the show now?
Right. Yep. Yeah. Fortunately, never wound up in any of those situations myself, but it's definitely not one you want to be in.
No, I'm gonna say thankfully you've never end up in one of those situations, especially because I've heard of all the crazy situations, especially from Ash and you guys, with how many times their bus breaks down on tour. It's become a meme.
They've been through the ringer for sure.
I mean, how in the past year and a half, it's been 5 or 6 buses they've gone through.
At least, I mean, the thing is after COVID, after all this stuff was lifted, the thing that a lot of people don't think about is that it used to be not exactly 50-50, but artists would alternate, right? Every band kind of had their thing. They would put out an album every 2 years. They would tour for that album, whatever, put the record out, tour, make the record, put the record out, tour. It was kind of the thing. But everybody wasn't matched up because everyone had started at different times. And so everything kind of had its own cycle. And so there was enough to go around. Well, after COVID, everything started back up at the same time. So everyone had the same 0 point. And so now everyone needs buses all the time. Everyone needs crew all the time. Everyone needs hotels all the time. And so that's why so many people have trouble finding buses, or they wind up getting buses that keep breaking down and they keep having to go through new ones. And it's like they're getting new ones by the skin of their teeth, and they're having to fly to shows and rent cars and, put their crew in the back of a U-Haul so that they can just get them to the next show and whatever, because there's just the demand all converged and to one single point. And easier said than done, but I think the whole music industry needs to have a meeting and just decide okay, this half, go, you stay behind for a year, and then go back, because like I said, everybody started back up all at once, and the supply has not been able to match the demand at all. So it's been a nightmare for just about everybody, honestly. When I was playing with Ice Nine, we had buses break down on every single tour. With the gig that I have, now, and it was the same one that I was in before Ice Nine. We've had bus problems, and drivers quit or get fired or just walk away one day and disappear because they don't feel like doing it anymore. It just there's shit that happens on a tour that most people don't talk about. But yeah, the bus situation is a big one right now.
I mean, I knew that the bus situation was definitely messed up since COVID, and I always thought it was because everybody had been off for a year and a half at that point. And of course, what's the first thing you want to do when you're able to go back out and play shows? Everyone and their mother wants to go out and tour. So the demand for these buses, the demand for transportation, and the demand to have people and crew to help put on these shows was going to be high. But I did not even think about where beforehand it was that staggered moment where it was certain bands were going out at this time, and then all of a sudden the cycle would happen. They'd pull back to write a new record or work on new music, and then the next bands that were putting out albums at that time would go and tour and support them. So that streamline happened. Now there's none of that streamline because everyone wants them all at the same time. So in order to just meet up with that demand, you're going to end up getting potentially inferior products. And I'm not talking about the music. I'm talking about the transportation, because again, you're saying Ice Nine kills runs, buses breaking down. Your current gig right now that you're with, buses breaking down. From Ashes to New, we all know the stories if you've been following them on social media. So it makes so much more sense to me. And beyond that too, it's not like these things are cheap either. They're not even getting cheaper because demand is high. So I thought I saw someone was like between 2019 and 2023, like transportation costs doubled for bands just to
Oh,
get from one show to the
100%.
next.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, before COVID, the US has always been the most expensive place to have a bus. It's always been cheaper in Europe. It used to be when I was in a band where I was privy to the financials, a bus in the States for a month would cost you about 60 grand. Um, it is, and your eyes widened when I said that. It's already
Yeah.
a lot of money. Now, if you want a tour bus, especially a good one, you might as well buy a house. It's a lot of money to have a tour bus. A bandwagon used to be the more affordable option, and that's what like the mid-level bands
Mm-hmm.
would do. And it is still what most of the mid-level bands would do, but it probably would have been 25, 30K, and now it's anywhere from 40 to 60. It's all just shifted upwards.
Well, not only
Um,
that, I've been seeing a lot of like the mid-level bands too that are doing the bandwagons. They're doubling up. Like it's two bands to a
mhm.
bandwagon, and I'm wondering how the heck are they doing this? Because I'll never forget in 2022, Dayseeker came through to Milwaukee for a tour. It was Dayseeker, Thornhill, Caskets, and Holding Absence. And I ended up bringing the
Mhm.
guys in Caskets a case of beer after the show, and I knocked on the bus. I had no idea they were sharing a bus with Holding Absence. And even when we were hanging out in there, just having a good time, I was looking around like, how are 10 guys, like 10, 9, 10 guys, able to like actually work in this bus? I didn't even think it was big enough for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of doubling up. And I mean, dude, especially in a bandwagon, like that sucks. I'm fortunate enough now that I'm touring in, buses pretty regularly. Well, no, I mean, exclusively, but I would rather like van, sprinter, or bus over bandwagon. Like, I would rather be the one driving the van every single night and then just sleeping during the day until showtime versus riding on a bandwagon. Riding on a bandwagon feels like you're riding on a boat, because it's effectively a box truck. So anytime like, especially if you're moving slowly, which sounds ridiculous, you'd think speed would be the
Mm-hmm.
worst, but it's not. When it's moving slowly and they're like pulling over a curb to get into a parking lot, the whole thing just shakes back and forth. The fridge door flies open, fucking soda cans go flying everywhere. Like, yeah, it's not fun. I absolutely loathe riding in a bandwagon.
Well, when you described it like riding on a boat, now that makes a lot of sense because imagine you're on a boat like a ski boat or something and you're going, pretty fast and you hit some like bigger waves. Just because of the speed you're going, you're kind of going like this. But if you go slowly and you hit those waves, you're just like, you're
Yep.
feeling the whole entire thing. So it does make sense. And it does make sense when you're talking about a bandwagon kind of being like a luxurious box truck. So it gives us,
Yeah.
especially as fans, a lot more perspective of not only what other bands are going through or what these artists that we love are going through when it comes to touring, but where some of the difficulties come in. And especially when you brought up, a bus before the pandemic costing or about $60,000 a month to have, and you saw my eyes go wide. I'm like, how is that possible? But again, I'm not as privy to the finances as much as you guys are. So it's probably very possible. But at that point in time, that was like 2018, 2019. You said it's like the cost of a house right now? Shit. I don't even want to know what that cost is because that could be like, it's like how much is it to run a bus for a month? It's like 120 grand. You're on a 2-month tour. Yeah, you could buy
Pretty
a
much.
okay house with that in certain places in the United States.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, guarantees have gone up too, but they've gone up because the prices of everything else have gone up. So the driver's fee has gone up, the fee for the bus has gone up, the cost of fuel has gone up. You got to get, I mean, on most bus tours, you're getting hotels for the drivers too. In Europe, the driver sleeps on the bus. There's a specific bunk, and I think there's usually two bunks because you can have up to two drivers for longer drives. So there will be like a bunk in the front cab, and then there will be a bunk that's actually like under or like kind of attached or adjacent to the staircase for the second driver that they can sleep in, and then everybody else's bunks are up top. Because the European buses are usually double deckers, so like the lounge is down below and the bunks are up top. Um, but in the States, there's no bunk for the driver. There's 12 bunks there usually in most tour buses, and they're usually all full. Because if you're doing a bus tour, you have a full crew. Because if you're paying that much for your transportation, your band's doing decently well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then you also have a lot of expenses. You have a lot of people to pay. So all those bunks are full, which means that you have to pay for a hotel for the driver too. Um, and that's pretty much a daily thing because they have, once they get somewhere, they have to go sleep somewhere.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
once you get somewhere, the driver's not going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to go hang out." Because what happens if they hang out, then all of a sudden the show's over and they got to go drive to the next city overnight? They're not going to want to do that or be able to do
well,
that without
right,
sleeping for
and
24
and
hours.
and you run into problems like that. Like, luckily most drivers in my experience are not this way, but every once in a while you'll get one where like they pull up, they park the bus, and then you see them hanging out in the venue later, and you're like, "Hey man, like, don't you need to go to sleep?" And they're like, "Oh, I just figure I'll hang out for the show." And you're like, "No, go to bed. Like, you're in charge of everybody's lives, dude. Like, no, get out of here. Go." Um, a lot of times dudes just get fired for that kind of shit on the spot because it's like you can't fuck around with something like that. The person driving the vehicle that everybody's in with no seatbelts
Mhm.
anywhere. We've seen horrible tour bus accidents happen in the past, so to have somebody, potentially fall asleep at the wheel or be driving
Mhm.
irresponsibly or whatever, like that's an absolute no-go.
Yeah, because I don't want to bring up any specific accidents that we know have happened, but we don't want anything to be worse than that because we don't want to put your
Right.
guys' lives at risk. We don't want to see that happen. And we don't want to have all of a sudden, especially maybe it's a little selfish for fans, we don't want to see the music go away. But on the unsubs, we don't want to see you guys get hurt. We don't want to see you guys have to go through that. No matter whether you're the crew, no matter whether you're the band, no matter whether you're, even the tour manager in there or whoever else it is. We just don't want to see that happen. So if all of a sudden even we as fans saw the driver in the venue, we'd probably be like, dude, what the hell are you doing out here? Everyone be like the parent, be like, dude, go to bed right now. If you're not in bed in 5 minutes, may as well just go home at that point.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, for sure.
But then it also gives us as fans another like look and further dip into, okay, we've definitely seen ticket prices increase pretty substantially over the past couple of years. But now you're seeing as these costs have continually increased. We're getting a reason by why these costs have increased. Of course, when it comes down to ticket prices, there's no, like, once they go up, it's like, okay, well, what can we do about it? Nothing really, because that's going to be, if you want to go to the show, that's what the price is. Bands are going to try and make it as affordable as possible, but you guys still got to be able to get to the next show. You guys got to be able to transport all your gear. You got to be able to pay your crew. So if you're not able to do that, then there's no show. And then we're bummed and then we're complaining too because there's no show. I'd rather complain about ticket prices being a little too much than I would want or expect versus not having these bands go out on the road and be able to actually do what they love.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, dude, it's a totally fair, complaint or criticism or whatever to be like ticket prices are too expensive, merch is too expensive, whatever. I mean, everything is crazy right now, and I mean, will it go down? Honestly, I kind of doubt it because
Yeah,
like with
same
this
here.
kind of stuff, once a standard is sort of set, like no, even if inflation goes way down and the dollar gets way more valuable, just seeing lower numbers on paper makes business people go, "Mm." So, I don't necessarily have a lot of faith that things will go in a downward trajectory as far as pricing is concerned, but hopefully it'll at least level out for a while and people's income can be raised to match that stuff. That's a whole political thing that I won't get into, but
Yeah.
like but yeah, it's just I mean the unfortunate reality of it is that it costs like before the band even gets paid. If you're a member, like a member, a partner on paper, a business owner, stakeholder of the band, before you get paid, everybody else has to get paid. And I mean a lot of these crew positions and stuff, especially depending on the position, you could be looking at anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 a week for some of these people. Um, and especially if you're at a level of bus tours and theaters or arenas or something like that. I mean, I would actually say that depending on the person, sometimes $6,000 a week might be a little light. So um it it's there's a lot of money exchanging hands, and pretty much all of that has to be accounted for before merch, because even though that you'll make, especially if you're a headliner, that you'll sell merch, that part of
Mhm.
your bottom line will include a good amount of merch money, but technically it's not guaranteed,
Mhm.
right? Like technically there is the possibility that you could play a show to 10,000 people and not a single person buys a shirt. It's highly unlikely, but it is technically possible. So you have to budget out the tour, without factoring in merch at all. So it's only what you're getting paid in guarantees and then all the expenses that you have. And most of the time, people do their best to make sure that the guarantees cover all of the expenses, and then the merch is just where the profit is made. And I mean that's been the case for many years, where merch is where the bands actually start to make some money. But yeah, so that that's why ticket prices go up. That's why all that shit goes up, is because it just people, the people that run the bus companies just decide to tell you like, hey, this is what it costs now, and you gotta everything else has to adjust because otherwise shit doesn't happen.
And this shit interests the hell out of me too. I mean, when I was in college, I studied economics, so this is all like right up my alley. Besides music, I'm like, ooh, this is actually pretty interesting. But it's getting me even know more about how this stuff works, how bands are working with these guarantees. And it makes a lot of sense too, because you got to make sure that the crew is accounted for, that all the travel expenses are accounted for. Because if that's not accounted for and you're depending upon merch, now you're depending upon a volatile thing where you could sell a lot one night and you'd be fine. Or you might have a problem and you might not sell nearly as much. Or if it's a bigger venue, maybe they tuck it away somewhere and not as many people know where it is, so they don't spend the money. And then you go further into debt, and that's not something that you can do, because who's going to want to deal with a band that can't pay their employees or can't pay the people that are helping them out? A lot of people might back away from that, but as fans, as we get to know more about this stuff and get a further understanding of it, we can look and say, okay, now I understand why these things are happening. And yeah, you still have a right to be mad at these ticket prices, but as more and more of you understand exactly what's going on with them, then you know, okay, so if they're still increasing, what's the actual reason behind their increase? It's like, okay, yeah, some of these guarantees are going up. Well, here's the reason why these guarantees are going up, but why do those guarantees have to go up in the first place? Then it's, okay, of course, when it comes to the transportation issue, we can look back at the COVID shutdown and then the craziness behind that and the demand behind that. Also, maybe bus companies not providing as good buses as possible to make that happen. So there's a lot of different.
No, and there was a driver shortage for a while too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Decided that they didn't want to. A lot of people decided that they didn't want to do it anymore. That was one thing that COVID did for a lot of people, is they were home for 2 years and then they were like, I do not want to go back to that job, like whatever that job is. They just didn't want to do it anymore, and they wanted to find another better way for their own lives. So there was a driver shortage for a while, and I mean, also keep in mind, like the bus is just one of 1,000 things that's being rented.
Yeah.
Like all of the production, if you see a band with video wall, dude, like video wall is expensive. I don't know how much a single panel, which a single panel I think is like 3 feet tall by 2 feet wide or something like that. There's like hundreds of those panels if you see a big production. I don't know how much one of those panels is per day, but it is a daily rate. And you usually have to basically double up on the video wall that you rent, because if anything goes wrong with any of the pieces, you need to be able to replace them. So you might not double it up, but you have to rent more than you actually need. And so any riser that you see, any piece of truss, any light that's on the floor, most of the time the front of house console that the guy's using, monitor desk on the stage, whatever, like any piece of gear that you see that isn't a guitar or an amp or a drum kit or whatever, which even honestly, even the drum kit can be rented depending on where they are in the world. If it's an American band in Europe, the drum kit's rented. Like everything is a daily or weekly rental fee, and it just the demand skyrocketed for everything, and so it's all just insanely expensive now.
I think if I remember correctly about the video wall, I think Bad Omens, when they went on their run in 2022 at the end of it, right when like Death of Peace of Mind was huge, and they were like, they would sell out venues and then they would get double upgrades because of how many people were going there. It was like, I saw someone was like, they put $100,000 into the video wall alone just for that tour.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah,
which
it
is
sounds
like
about right.
Absolutely ridiculous. But again, the more we as fans get to learn about how these expenses work, the more we get an understanding of the things that bands go through, the things that our favorite artists go through, just to be able to get out on stage, be able to put on a great show. And even further than that, understand that, if they're saying, maybe we're not making as much money as you think we're making, now we understand why. And maybe as more things get known about that, maybe we can help get more money in artists' pockets, because we want to make sure that the artists that we love get the money that they deserve.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, Chris, I don't want to keep you too much long because I know you got to eat at some point soon. I don't want to keep you from that, but I got one more question if you're up for it.
Of course. Yeah, go for it.
So this time I love to ask every single artist. I've been doing this for over a year now, and it's a great way for not only me, along with all the other fans of the Chord Progression Podcast, to get to know a lot more new music that's out there, but for you to help support the music that you love. So I'm going to ask you for 3 of these. Can you name me 3 bands or artists that you love that you would love to see more people get into right now?
Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna have to pull up my phone for this.
Don't worry, pulling up your
Um,
phone, looking at like Spotify music, whatever it is, that you're like in 50% of the people that do that. 50% don't, 50% do. It's pretty standard at this point.
okay, gotcha. All right, so let me see. All right, so this is somewhat of a selfish plug. It's not my band, but it's a client of mine. If you're a deathcore fan, there's a band called Nine Dead. That absolutely rules. They just put out a song with Eddie from Suicide Silence. He's a fucking monster. He killed it. Everybody who listens to deathcore, go listen to Nine Dead. If you like old Suicide Silence shit, they're right up your alley. Um, hold on. All right. Everything that's in my like immediate thing is all bands that don't need my help. Um, hold on.
So, you
Hillhaven would
yeah.
be a cop out, so I'm not going to do that one. Well, Ricky has his band called Hawk, and it's awesome. So everyone go listen to that band. And then all right, let me try to find one actual recommendation. Please hold.
Yeah, but you go with bands that not as many people know that might, do a really good job by getting a little recommendation from you. That's the perfect way to go about it.
Yeah, because I mean, I would like no Lincoln Park doesn't need my help, So
Yeah.
let's see here. Come on, there's got to be one more.
I believe in you, man. I believe in you.
I'm into the Jays. It's not looking good. Hold on.
If you'll find something like,
Oh,
there we go.
okay. This is a homie of mine. It's a band. There's a band called Gnosis. If anyone's familiar with a band called Crystal Lake from Japan, it's the guy
Yeah.
that used to sing for Crystal Lake. His name is Ryo, and he has a new band called Gnosis, and everything that they're putting out is fucking dope. And his producer Yosh is a buddy of mine as well. They're both very good friends that I see every time I'm in Japan. And they're doing their best to make a splash in the States. They're on Sharp Tone. So go listen to that shit. I actually it's not out yet, but I just mixed a song for them, so that's also kind of a selfish plug, but I'm not getting any back end on it. So don't think I'm just in it for the money. It's genuinely a fantastic project, and I want to see it blow up.
Oh, I think those are 3 great picks, and I also love what you just said at the end of that too, where it's like, yeah, I got a new song I worked with them on, just mixed it, just produced it, everything's looking good on it. Might be a selfish plug, but at the same time, no, it's not. It's a new band. It's Rio's new project, and I know a lot of people like Crystal Lake, especially when Rio was in it. So let's get more people in to know
He's
about
a
it. Right?
ridiculous vocalist, dude. He's so good. I wish I was half as good as that guy.
Hey, don't sell yourself short, man. Especially on these songs, you're pretty damn good yourself. So don't sell yourself short.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Chris, as we wrap this up, I want to end this podcast with 3 things. First things first, for everybody, when it comes to Hillhaven, when it comes to getting to know more about them, keeping in touch with them when they release more new music, and if you get a chance to go see them play live, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to go to description of the podcast. It'll say, find Hillhaven online, links, labels for everything. You're going to be their social media, YouTube, where you can stream all their music, where you can find them online, where you can get some merch, all that kind of stuff's going to be down there. So make sure you go down there and check them out. Now it's time for number 2, Chris. Whenever I've guests on the podcast, I enjoy from the podcast, I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say thank you, I appreciate it, and I wish to continue to support the band in the future, and this is how I'm doing it. I've already made this promise to Maddie, and I still have to make good on it, but it's not an if, it is a when. When I get to see you perform live for the next time, because I know I've seen you perform live before when you were working with Ice Night Kills, because I right when you said, I'm like, I recognize that face. I know exactly where it's from. It just all clicked right then and there. But when I see you perform live for the next time, and hopefully it's with Hillhaven too, I will come and find you. I will come and say hi. But the real promise is first round's on me.
All right. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
And if you're with Maddie too, I'll be like, I get to kill 2 birds with 1 stone on this one. Hell yeah.
There you go. All right.
And now it's time for number 3. As we bring this podcast to conclusion, I cannot end this by saying goodbye. That is way too final, because I'd love to have you back on the podcast again. This was a incredible conversation, and I got to make good on that promise. So this can't be goodbye. This is, I'll see you later.
See you later, buddy. Thanks.
Well, folks, this is my interview with Chris from Hillhaven. Now it's time for Kevin's final thought. And I mean, you may be able to go to other episodes too of Chris on podcast, talk about the formation of the band, anything. But I don't think you're going to find the deep, like in-depth quality conversation that we had around the current state of touring and getting more people to understand how expensive it has gotten and diving deep into some of the reasons why. Like I said earlier, when I was in college at the University of Minnesota, my degree is in economics. So stuff like this really interests me. Like I always have this innate wanting to learn about this stuff. It always has brought a very spark of like, ooh, to me. And cannot believe that, some of these things are actually like the way they are, but that's what they are. I can believe that, buses were getting expensive because after the pandemic, everyone and their mother wanted to go on tour, but like, why has that demand not gone down? And Chris perfectly answered it. Chris perfectly answered what it's like to be on the road, not only trying to operate these buses, but all the costs that are associated with it, along with being on like a bigger production style tour, because how much all these other instances are costing and why they have to put that all into the guarantee so that they make sure that those people are covered before even the band members are covered or the owners of the business, essentially, in that standpoint. It is something that I was not expecting to really dive into, but I love the fact that we're getting a little bit more of that behind the curtain look at what these larger bands are going through right now, how expensive it is to actually do these things, and why you're seeing ticket prices go so high for certain areas. So whether you're going to see a band that's, just playing at your local venue, playing at a bigger size venue in your local area, playing at an amphitheater, playing in an arena, or even a stadium, or why festival like ticket prices are so expensive at times. Now you get an understanding why, and I want to thank Chris for that. And I want to thank you for talking all about Hillhaven as well. So make sure you go follow along with them. Go script for the podcast. You'll say find Hillhaven online. Links levels for everything to get to know the band are there to find them live, listen to their music, and keep in touch with them. So go down there and check them out. Be sure to follow us on the Chord Progression Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Links are in this podcast description below. Also, subscribe button if you're on YouTube right down here. Hit the follow button on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you're there. Hit the like button on these episodes to help push these episodes in the algorithm, help push the podcasting algorithm, and make us the best podcast out there for music of all kinds. Yeah, I'm going after all the music, not just the metal kind or the hard rock kind. We're going after all kinds of music. Hell yeah. So be sure to do that. I want to thank Chris for coming on the podcast today. I really enjoyed this one. And that's going to be for me, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. Just a big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah.